So the building is an example of a somewhat functional permanent artwork. They eventually tear down the buildings. In Europe, if they're smaller buildings, they tend to keep them forever. But the Inuit, the
Yeah,
correlate.
but our attitude toward buildings, I think we've made an effort to keep certain buildings. I don't think anyone's ever going to tear down the Chrysler building. Although, they tried to tear down Grand Central Station in the 70s. You've,
Jesus.
you've been to Grand Central Station, right, in New
Yeah.
York City?
No, it's gorgeous.
It's gorgeous, but it was only because of Jackie Kennedy that building was saved. They wanted to rip that. I can't understand how they would rip that down. So the idea of preservation, I think there's more of an idea of preservation now in the United States than there was 40 years ago, 30 years ago. But I know developers and municipalities, they get into these fights over preserved buildings because once you declare a building historic, you gotta appeal to the municipality to be able to do anything to it, and so it becomes very contentious. And that's just not even to tear it down. That's just like to do some restoration work. Like you suddenly don't have control over your building anymore. I don't know how they do it in Europe, but it seems to me in Europe they have a better system, or they just don't. I don't know. I don't hear about confrontations like you would in the United States,
Well, you
where
you
it's so legally contentious.
you hear about some pretty heartbreaking destruction of the past here, with almost no protest. An old building has very little value here. An old farmhouse has very little value here. If a developer were to go into Lumpkin, they would tear down the entire downtown area in a second if they could build something that was profitable. In Europe, it's the opposite. They wouldn't even begin to consider tearing down an old structure. Perhaps they lost so much during World War I and World War II. Or the other thing is that they're proud about their past, and they don't want to leave their past. They have a certain nostalgia about the past. I know that you wrote a book called Nostalgia. Do Americans lack nostalgia? Were they not proud of the Chrysler building or the Empire State Building built 100 years ago? Do they want to move beyond?
Are Americans proud of any particular building in their country? I'm just not sure that
Do Americans
Americans are
have
raised with
nostalgia?
an awareness.
Do Americans have nostalgia? It seems that preservation is motivated by nostalgia.
I would agree, but that's also motivated by history. And if you have a very poor understanding of history, which I think Americans do, of their own history, well, everybody's history, especially their own, though, and that's shocking. Like, you wouldn't be aware of your own history. And I guess if you destroy the family unit, then you're not even aware of your family's history. So you're just a product and a tool of the marketers and advertisers to purchase what's available for purchase today, manipulated by bankers. I mean, it's a good place to have people if you want to just manipulate them and control their environment without protest. Well, I think that's where Americans mostly are.
If you're trying to make it, if you're trying to make it today economically, history is a real drag. History is a real burden. Worrying about
compare it to the French, for instance. You remember in France when we were traveling through all of the hypermarchés were the big supermarkets. They were all located outside of the towns and the cities, and that's under order of law. That the government says they not only wanted to protect architecturally the centers of the towns and cities from these new monstrosities of supermarkets that would be built there with cheap materials, but they also wanted to protect the local shop owners and not have the local businesses be run out of business, like by the hypermarchés, they're like the Walmarts of France and Walmarts of Europe. So there's a real sense of two things: architecture and also maintaining a certain local economy. And that has everything to do with history. To maintain the local character of a downtown, it's not just to make sure that buildings aren't destroyed. It's to make sure that the businesses that have traditionally existed there will continue to exist. So that if you want meat, you got to go to the charcuterie. If you want bread, you got to go to the bread seller. You got to make a bunch of trips to be able to purchase the things that you want to purchase, and it creates relationships which are important. The guy who operates that business is the guy who's making doing the butchering, whatever, and the building he's in has always been doing that thing. And if you grow up like that, you certainly have an appreciation for history. So it's deeper than just the history of a book. It's you're surrounded by history, and the French, to their credit, make it. It's probably this way across Europe. I'm just talking about France right now, but to their credit, they understand this sense of history, and it's important. Of course, at the same time, the young businessmen, French guys who want to be yuppies, they view this as a huge drawback, and it's a hindrance to economic development and growing the GDP and progress. And the bankers don't like it either. None of them like it, but it maintains a social stability that I think is priceless. And look, they're a healthy, happy people, certainly healthier and happier than Americans are. So there's something to be said for it.
Yeah, I don't think Americans have any room whatsoever for that type of sentimentality, for that type of preservation of the past. It really gets in the way of the American business model. Thank God there's very little history here to preserve. The direction here is just, for the you have the suburbia, you have the urban center, and now you're seeing, I think, what they call it exurbia, where even the rural areas now are being populated by these cheap homes, and I've heard it said that a lot of this is being driven by the fiat currency, the monetary expansion, and a lot of that is just driven by state central banking policy.
Well, there's too much money floating around, and it has nowhere to go. So they're trying to create new asset classes from nothing because they need to. And there's this much money floating around. This is just a ridiculous time we live in, and it's been created by central bankers, of which the Fed is only one. Look at the Swiss central bank. Do you know who's the biggest owner of stocks in the world? Is apparently the Swiss central bank, and they're purchasing all the time. And apparently, this is what's been alleged, is that the Fed, which cannot purchase U.S. stocks under its edict, they loan money to the Swiss central bank to purchase U.S. stocks. So basically, it's like some variant of a plunge protection team.
Well, that's what I was going to say. The plunge protection team is operated out of Geneva.
It might very well. Is that true? It's operated out of Geneva?
No, I'm just listening to.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just listening to the data you're giving me and making a conclusion. I mean, these
the plunge protection team
these future traders are a lot better dressed than I assumed. I was assuming they were like you and your guys in New York, bunch of drunks. But no, these guys are sipping fancy espressos, wearing 3-piece suits in Geneva, and they're the ones that are juicing the S&Ps every time we get a big spike in the VIX.
Oh, that's right. And well, I think there's a difference though. I think the plunge protection team is legally, it was created by Reagan after the 87 crash, and they have some sort of semi-legal ability to do stuff. But I don't think that they can just go in and willy-nilly buy stocks whenever they want to. They have to have a legitimate reason if there's been a plunge. But this Swiss stuff is just a constant upward pressure on the U.S. markets, and I think it's very much responsible for the suppression of the VIX. And strangely enough, the Swiss are also being helped by this, because the Swiss don't want to see the Swiss franc go up a lot. So their purchasing of U.S. equities helps to suppress the value of the Swiss franc, which is one thing they're worried about. They want to keep a lower Swiss franc. They don't want it to be too strong. So it's just crazy what's going on. If you ever read that guy,
they're shorting the franc, or they're selling the franc to buy dollars, and then with those dollars,
that's right.
They're buying the stocks, and then they have some type of collateral agreement with U.S. banks. I'm sure they just signed some type of a deal where
it totally works out for the Swiss, though. It works out for all parties. The Swiss want a lower Swiss franc, and the U.S. wants a higher stock market.
Switzerland is used
especially
by,
when you have a president who's always touting his beautiful stock market. The beautiful stock market just keeps going higher. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
It's so beautiful.
I actually, in my retirement account, I actually put half of my money into cash. I was sitting on large gains. I've got basically half of it in the S&P. I had half of it in the S&P 500, and then half of it in emerging growth, international, and it was up a ton. I think over like a year and a half, it was up like 36%, and historically, that's just too much. So I put half of it into cash, and but maybe it still runs. I wonder. Do you still talk to any of your futures trader friends? I mean, are they? I mean, I think of Todd Harrison. I mean, the poor guy. He must be just getting. He all he does is know to short the S&P. I mean, he must have just gotten creamed. Maybe his pot stocks.
Yeah, but Todd is done.
His pot stocks probably bailed him out.
Tado is done. He sold Minionville. I think he's out of it, and he's married. He moved to the Hamptons or something. He's got twins with some lady who's got some kids already, and Todd now is big on marijuana. He thinks marijuana is the future.
Right. So he
touts marijuana on a Twitter account.
Yeah. So he was big on the marijuana stocks years ago. He's probably made a fortune. If you bought a basket of marijuana stocks, maybe in the OTC market, or you did it through your own private.
Oh, if he did that, yeah. But I think he's just hemorrhaging money with the marijuana stocks right now, because you got this current administration with Jeff Sessions thinks that the opioid crisis in marijuana is related. I mean, he thinks like marijuana is the equivalent of heroin, Mexican black tar heroin or something. That's how he talks about black tar heroin. He makes references to marijuana. So I think there's no chance for marijuana stocks at least these 4 years and perhaps another 4 years. But this has got to be like the bottom, at least the bottom for the future, looking forward to get in for marijuana stocks with Jeff Sessions as Attorney General.
I'm actually surprised to hear that. I thought, and I need to look at the charts. I thought that they're up like Bitcoin. I thought they're up monumentally. Because
they might. I haven't actually looked at any of the charts, but there's no future for marijuana because the feds don't want to. The feds have demonized it.
No,
right?
I actually thought that if you look at a graph of marijuana sales in the U.S., legalized marijuana sales, they're off the charts. Off the charts.
All right. Well, all I'm saying, I guess what I'm saying is maybe they're up a lot, but they could still go a lot further if the feds were actually behind.
I mean,
the
legalization initiatives were incredible. California, Alaska, Washington, Oregon,
yeah.
Nevada, and it's a virtuous circle, because once the states legalize recreational marijuana, it draws in hundreds of millions of dollars of capital. If you look at the latest issue of Paper and Packaging Monthly, it's a very high quality publication used in the actually it's packaging today, so it includes the plastic industries and the aluminum and steel.
They also talk about rolling papers.
The cannabis industry was on the cover, and their special was
what, for rolling papers?
Was about 8. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the industry, but the main drivers of the industry are what they call the edibles. The edibles are in candies, sodas, cookies, and there are as many varieties of edibles with the same professional packaging as Oreo or Pepperidge Farm. I mean, it's very, very sophisticated. Then the other huge growth industry is in vape oils. Vaping has very much displaced the nicotine market for cigarettes, but then you're also able to put THC and cannabinoids in vape oils. And then you have the flower industry, which has grown. It's standardized. The varietals are myriad, and then you have these professional kind of grocery stores that sell all of these things in professional packaging, high-end packaging. You've got $100 million companies that are throwing money into R&D, using automated equipment to process all of these things. And then you have all of these states that have legalized it, and their tax revenues are off the charts. So my assumption had been
maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I haven't looked at any of the stock prices for this stuff.
Now,
but I think the question is still out there, though. Who are going to be the real winners? Whether it's going to be some new company, or whether Philip Morris is going to get involved, or who knows what'll happen. And it's a question of probably the best way to play it is to have just a basket of stocks and
right.
So
you've got senior vice presidents from large Fortune 500 companies, which are leaving corporate America, which are leaving these Fortune 500s to join organizations in Nevada, California, Colorado, Oregon, Washington, and Alaska. You know, Alaska has legalized recreational marijuana. And I was considering that's probably a great thing for Alaska, with the pervasive alcoholism and the methamphetamine problem, and other drugs.
It's probably the best drug the best and safest and healthiest drug to ride out the winter. You need something to ride out the winter.
The fishermen were always trying to score weed. When I was unloading boats, I would get a question from some of the younger deckhands. Hey man, do you burn? Which is, I guess, do you smoke weed? And then they'd ask me if I had anything.
Burn.
Yeah. Do you?
I think it's like asking you if you have gonorrhea.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Hey man, are you burning?
No. I just took my.
All right, let's go down to
my course of antibiotics.
Let's go down the fish hole together.
Now these guys and I remember when I was on my boat after I'd gotten off the dock, I was living on the boat, and I think over a weekend I kept running into this one guy, and he was always asking me if I had something. Apparently his skipper left him on the boat for a week. The guy had no money. There's no food on the boat, but he was more worried about scoring weed. But yeah, so
well, that makes sense.
Yeah, but Europe and their history. At a certain point, you were not so interested in Europe. I remember I had taken some trips out there, and your observation about Europe. This is right when you were getting into South America. You said,
yeah, I've said all kinds of stuff. I've said all kinds of stuff at different times. That's the thing, though. People, the historians, the biographers, the champions of anything that I've ever written will want to hold me to a certain perspective that I've voiced at a certain time. I think Europe is wonderful. I think they're like a culture in formaldehyde or stored in amber, and it's wonderful. It's just wonderful. They're a museum piece, and you could just go to these towns and see all this beautiful stuff. And there's not a Taco Bell on the corner, and people aren't fat and ugly looking. That's just wonderful. Because the reality is just America. It's just such a tawdry, sick, disgusting place. And it's great that there's something to counteract that. And that's just what Europe is. I mean, if I'm going to put Europe down, it's not because I'm saying America is a great place. I'm not saying anything is a good place. I guess every place has their drawbacks.
No, I'm referring to something very specific. I actually really thought your observations on Europe were very refreshing. I kept going back there because I thought that was the only place to go. I didn't think there was anything in South America. I didn't want to go anywhere else. But your observation was that Europe can't teach you anything. It's all fake and it's socialistic. I don't think you were knocking the beauty and the culture and the Mediterranean and the food. I mean that stuff is obviously beautiful. But your point was that if you're looking to be taught a lesson in either culture or a challenge, you're not going to get there by going. You're not going to have that experience by going to Europe. Europe is for old men. When you're a young man, you explore, you take great risk. You see these isolated cultures, which have been unaffected by socialism. But then when you get to be an old man, I think your phrase was, and you want to eat dried and smoked meats and drink red wine, and that's when you go back to Europe.
No. Cured meats and cheeses.
Cured meats and cheeses. I mean, I wouldn't mind, getting enough capital and moving to Italy and just having a little garden and maybe a goat, some chickens, and maybe some.
I think about that too. Or maybe like Spain, maybe somewhere in Andalusia.
Oh yeah,
it's just so beautiful down there, and just lots of great cured meats, lots of Spanish goat cheese, and just live like that. But what I realize is that I'm filled with too much rage. I have so much rage still. I can't go there. I'd go nuts one day just because it was so beautiful and everyone was so happy and everyone was so well adjusted and they could live in this way. I'll always be an interloper because I'm filled with rage.
No, you wouldn't have the rage. You wouldn't have the rage if you lived there. The rage would go away.
Oh, I would. I would eventually. The rage would just go crazy one day. It'd be too happy of a place. I mean, at least living in America, I'm surrounded by people who are on the edge in their own way, and so I know that I'm surrounded by people who at any moment could just crack and go crazy. And there's a certain comfort knowing that, just because I'm that way in my own way. It's not the way they are. I'm not desperate like they are. I'm not. My rage is something different. My rage is something. General, everything all right over there?
Yeah, the computer went to sleep again, but it doesn't affect. I'm very curious about this rage. Is this a passion about unfinished business, or is this a passion about class warfare in?
No, it's not. It's personal. It's personal, but it's also the things around me are affected by it, and they affect me. And
you experience personal rage. Personal rage.
Well, most of it is self-directed.
Self-directed personal rage.
Well, I always feel that I could be doing better. I should be achieving more. I hold myself to a very high standard. Like I take some, like take writing, for instance. So I take someone that I loved, that I think their writing is great. I really think their writing is just, man, that blew me away. Well, that sets a certain standard, and that's something I want to, I want to outachieve that. I want to beat that. And so I'm filled with anxiety and just obsession about trying to do better than this thing, and it takes over your life, and you just meditate angrily sometimes, happily sometimes when you think you've done something well. It leads to a lot of emotions, but then there also at the same time there's people and things that surround you that are also writing. There's all this writing out there, and you read it. Some of it's published in the New Yorker, some of it's published in some other prestigious place, and that writing is shit. It's shit. And you read it and you get angry and you say, how is this being put out on a fucking pedestal as something great when this is total and complete shit? And when you're surrounded by so much shit that's being promoted, you get angry. And you get angry at the complacency of these people that would write this stuff. How they now they're on a pedestal, and now they don't really want to live. I mean, because part of writing is you got to go out and you got to live in the world. So none of these people have ever really lived in the world. They get an MFA, and then they call themselves a professional, and then they got all these people telling them how great they are. That makes me angry, and it comes down to not really caring. You got to care so much about your art and the way you live and the art of your own life and the art of all of it that you don't care about anything else. You don't care if you die. You don't care if you get hurt.
But this is the thing, though. It's like, I think it goes back to your observation about the Argentinians, is that they were happy and they were content. They wouldn't be traveling all around the world. Although some of the Argentinians did take these bike trips to see their own land. I did run into a guy who was cycling across Route 40, and his hometown was in Chilecito.
Oh yes,
Chilecito, I believe, is where you try to stay in like some type of a restroom outside near a park, and some people try to break in to the door.
Oh no, I stayed in a high school gymnasium, or like a youth center, and I was promised a room, but I didn't get it, and they never arrived in time, and it was dark. And then they said they were locking me in, and then some youths crawled through a window, and they were trying to get into this. I barricaded myself in this kitchen area, and they were trying to get in there, and I put desks up against the doors, and they were pushing the desks on the doors. I told them, don't come in, and they kept pushing the doors. So I pulled the desk away, I whipped out my knife, and I jumped out of the doors on them. I said, I'm going to fuck them up. And one of them ran away, and the other one was frozen in fear in front of me. I actually started feeling bad for him. He was shaking. He couldn't even move. And I told him to get out of there. And I said, just get out of here. And that emboldened the other one, who I think was the real criminal. And they tried to come back again. So I had to pull the knife again on them and show them I was really serious. And that time, after that, they left.
Yeah, I had a different experience in Chilecito. I found a hostel, and most of the people staying there were road workers, a crew from one of the big cities. And God, it was hot out there. Was it blazing hot when you were going through that part of Argentina?
I don't think so. I think you were going through that area in the summertime, and I was probably there in the fall or the winter.
Yeah, the sun. There was no shade. It was very, 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 very hot. But getting back to being in a happy place and then how that would affect your writing. I mean, you go to Spain, you go to a beautiful farm town. You're telling me you're still going to be thinking about the Western writing? I mean, aren't you going to be just writing about your day, tending your fields, and your time passing afternoons and evenings with your neighbors? I mean, wouldn't you just completely forget all this Western shit? Wouldn't you just completely forget?
No. And the reason is this. The reason is this is because as a Western, especially American, we are totally uprooted. And we've lost connection to anything. And to try and go to a place where everyone is well connected and to try and live there and not to have grown up there, not to have had family there, not to be speaking the language as they speak it, not to be eating the foods as they've always known them, not to have all of that in your blood and in your flesh and the soil as a part of you. You're an orphan. You're not really part of any of that. And I guess I'm angry about being an orphan. That's where the rage comes in. Is that you're always going to be homeless. You're always forever cast off, looking for some distant shore to give you a home, and you'll never get it. The reality is that the best you can do is just have some friends you've had for a long time, to have a mother and a father that you communicate with, even if you don't communicate with them very well. It's still better than finding some surrogate mother and father in some beautiful place. You still would be much happier in a deep way to have an unhappy relationship with people that are a part of you, that you share a lineage and a legacy with. That's the reality of it all. So the cured meats and cheeses, it's a pipe dream. It'll never satisfy me. Yeah, I mean, it'll be good for a little while, but I'll have to leave there too.
No, the cured meat. I think you were correct about the cured meats and cheeses. It's the great hope. That's what I'm holding out for. Cured meats and cheeses in Spain. I think you go there, you find a village, you make friends with everyone in the village. I mean, come on. I mean, you'd fit in there better than you'd fit in anywhere. I mean, the Spanish wouldn't be an issue. You'd learn the local dialect, and you'd.
Yeah, the problem is all the learning. You know, I think I'd like to learn stuff. I'm curious about the world. I'm curious about new things. But you know what? Who I envy are the people who are curious about nothing. The people who have lived in one place, and strangely, interesting enough, is those people never want to write anything. The writers are always the homeless people, the disturbed people. They're wandering around and writing about stuff. And those people get admired. Yeah, they become famous. But the people who are happiest are the people that never want to leave their town, and they just want to live a very seemingly limited life by city people standards. The people for whom the cured meats and cheeses were never a dream. They were just always what they knew. So, I don't know. Heidegger talks about this whole idea of thrownness. I don't know what the word in German
Well, I'm
is.
going to go to Spain,
But-
and I'm going to eat cured meats and cheeses, and I'm gonna see the beautiful
Hey,
pastoral life.
you can see if it works.
And then every day you
No,
you can call me up and say, hey, are you miserable yet? And I promise you, I'm just going to get happier and happier and happier. And then and then I'll maybe I'll do some scouting and I'll find a region. And I have to convince you that the cured is no. I mean, you gave me great hope. I'm not. You can't go back on your cured meats and cheeses. No, that's the goal, man.
No, Heidegger talks about this
The cured meats and
this
cheeses.
idea of
yeah.
throneness.
Sein und Zeit. I remember that
Throne-
chapter.
No,
Cured meats and
Yeah.
cheeses.
Being in Time. The second part is all about cured meats and cheeses. Going to Spain, leaving the Black Forest for Spain.
You know.
No, but he's got this idea of thrownness, which is that you cannot. He talks about Dasein and the being there and all that. You're always in a world, right? And the idea is that you've been thrown into this world. This is not a world of your own making, a world you have anything. You can't really control it very much. So you're tossed into this world, and that's sort of like the original sin, right? You can't get over any of that. It's always there, and so you're thrown. And I mean, the idea is it's very violent. You're just thrown in. You're born, bang, you're there.
Now,
And,
as opposed to what? What I mean, you're thrown into the world as opposed to some better situation.
I think as opposed to like the, in philosophy there was a lot of ideas about the clean slate. You're born and you have some control over the world, or you make yourself into something. All of these, Heidegger is saying you have to relinquish all of that control. And there are more powerful forces that are around than even you. And a lot of this is him trying to overturn the whole idea of Descartes and Cartesianism as this central soul and this divinity within the soul and all that. Like you'd have control over something, and with God and with believing, you'd have some control over your life. And no. He's saying throw all that away. That's nothing. Really, what you are is just a there-ness. And the there-ness is out of your own control. You're somewhere, and the world that you're in is well beyond you and has always been there. And so the forces and the gods and everything are just, you're a stranger here, but you've got to continue being there. And so that's kind of a miserable way to be. I think that
I've got the
maybe
solution. I
variations to that.
figured it out. Here's what you're missing out on. You're thinking of Italy. You're thinking of France. Maybe you're not thinking of France. Maybe you're thinking of Italy. Maybe you're thinking of Spain. Maybe you're thinking about Argentina. France. But what I've got the place for you. I've got the place for you. Maybe you've considered this. I almost went to Bavaria, but the reason why I didn't go is in small town
Bavaria.
Yeah, Bavaria in southern Germany. That's where Heidegger lived.
Bavaria or Bavaria?
What's the difference? Which one's in Germany?
Bavaria sounds like maybe a club in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And Bavaria sounds like a German region.
Well, I took a trip to Las Vegas, and they reproduce all they have the Roman Colosseum there. They've got the Egyptian pyramids. They've got New York City.
They got everything.
They've got everything. So I probably did go to a Bavaria, but Germany.
Bavaria.
But Germany is perfect because here's my plan. So you learn German. You go to a place where I don't know if the people in Bavaria write philosophy, but if you did write philosophy, there would have been enough Germans that did that kind of thing that you'd fit in. So when you'll have your pastoral life, you'll spend most of your time hiking in the Black Forest or in the mountains, maybe the Alps, and you can make your own wine and beer and dried meats and cheeses. So you can have your farm, and then when you get that, did you call it angst, rage? What do you have again?
Lots of rage.
Rage.
Lots of rage.
When you feel your rage, then you'll write philosophy, and you'll go into town and you'll say, I feel this rage and I feel this angst, and they'll know exactly what you're talking about. Germans feel the same way. They typically start a war.
No, the only way to get rid of that rage
is to write
is physical activity
or compose a symphony. Compose a symphony.
No, it's not artistic creation. The only way to get rid of that feeling is to obliterate yourself physically some way. Just do pull-ups until your hands rip apart and you're killed, and push-ups and all sorts of very aggressive calisthenic stuff. Lift weights, whatever it is. Running, cycling. Go cycle somewhere. Go cycle down Ruta Tres again, or Ruta 40 with the wind and the desolation. That's the only curative.
So southern
for that
Germany
rage.
sounds like the perfect place. I mean, it's got your cheeses, your smoked meats. It's got the mountains for all the physical activity. You've got some people that will be able to listen to your philosophical expressions of rage, and they're
nobody
wonderful
wants
people.
to hear about that. Nobody wants to hear about that, and they would be a disappointing audience.
They do.
You know,
You think Andreas?
the audience,
you think Andreas doesn't want to hear about that? All Germans want to hear about that.
well, he's not a German. He's an Austrian.
Well,
I don't know. We'd have to ask him what the real difference is between the two. I think there is a difference, though. But yeah, Andreas feels as I do. Actually, he's a very important and interesting guy because he feels as I do about the world. We share something, and he's probably the first European with which I have been able to feel that he understands when I talk about rage, or when I talk about how I feel and how I got to travel and how I got to move. Like, he understands the whole notion of rambling. I explained that to him I think on the podcast that I did with him. The whole word rambling, because he didn't know the word. And I said rambling is a very important word, especially with the blues guys and the country guys, and how you got to keep moving on. And that moving on and that homelessness, that displacement, he knows what that is. He's got that blues and country sensibility. You know, one of the great things with Andreas is we were listening to blues songs, and there's this, he loves the blues, but he even loves it even more as the old country and western stuff I was playing, like some great Willie Nelson stuff I put on with the twanging and the guitar. He was emotionally overcome listening to that, and I thought it was great. He was the first European that I ever saw could listen to country music, great American country music from the 70s, and hear that guitar and actually hear its message. That's the message, man.
We need to get Andreas on video listening to country music. What was he listening to?
Yeah,
was he listening
3
to
hours
old
of
school,
DVD?
Outlaw or Willie Nelson?
Yeah, Outlaw.
Yeah.
I was putting on. That's the only country I listen to is Outlaw, and he feels that music. When that guitar, there's that twang, there's that little wang wang, and when he hears that, he knows what it means.
He likes the slide. He likes the slide guitar.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But that's what it's about. Those country guys, those blues guys know what it's about. Those jazz guys know what it's about. These guys, you know, there's a famous story that I heard. This is a great story. It was like, I want to say Count Basie's orchestra. You know, these jazz guys were very itinerant. You know, they're always moving around the country. They didn't have stable lives. There was drugs, lots of women, whatever.
Now,
but they were brilliant creators.
Is that because these guys needed to be on the move, or was this simply just due to the nature of the fact they were musicians? They had lots of gigs.
Well, both. I think both. And so there's a story about I guess it was maybe the Count Basie Orchestra. Maybe it was Duke Ellington Orchestra. I don't know. But these guys were on a plane flight, or maybe no, it wasn't. Maybe it was like a train. I don't know what they were taking. They were traveling between cities, between performances. And they ran into trouble because of snow. And they got abandoned out in the middle of nowhere, and they had to walk like 15 miles to get to where they needed to get to be able to get like the next transportation to get them to the city to get to their concert. And while they were walking, right, in the middle of a snowstorm, these musicians with their instruments and their other suits, their changed clothes, you know, these guys were all really hip, cool guys. They're walking, and they pass in the middle of a snowstorm. They're all cold. They pass this little cabin or this little house in the middle of nowhere, and The windows are open. The windows, you can see through the windows, and they're walking by in the snow, and they look in through the windows, and there's a family inside. There's a great fire raging. Families sitting around the fire. They look so happy and content. And one of the musicians looks at another one of the musicians and says, Jesus, man, who would want to live like that? And they kept on walking. They didn't even stop to go in and warm up or anything. I think I'm butchering the story a little bit, but the whole idea is these guys would rather stay out in the snow, wandering around where they didn't even know where they were going, than actually have a stable home life in front of a fire with the storm outside raging. The storms, man, the storms. To stay in the middle of the storm and never fucking leave it. That's what these guys were about. I mean, and you make that choice early on, and then that choice is your life. You can't ever really get out of it.
You really think it's a lifelong choice? You don't just think it's a stage at a younger period of your life or something that you do once in a while. You don't think somebody just gets worn out of being on the road and want to settle down and have a nice little cabin or a nice little hut and eat cured.
People who settle down were always settled down. They were born settled down. You don't choose to settle down. It's not a choice. That's the problem with today people in America and their troubles, is that they're born unsettled, but they don't have release in music or in art or in travel. They don't have the ability, the physical strength or the vocabulary to be able to give themselves some respite from all of this upheaval. And so they turn to drugs and they eat McDonald's and they have terrible jobs and they're, and then eventually they shoot up a school or they shoot themselves or they overdose or they hurt a bunch of people around them. That's the thing. I mean, art and music and whatever it is released from the unsettled life. But it's only temporary because you got to keep creating. You can't just rest on your laurels when you're a creator. The high you get and the satisfaction you get from creation, it has to be repeated over and over and over again. It's like that whole Nietzsche thing, the eternal recurrence and all that. Who even knows what that means? But doesn't it mean you got to just keep repeating yourself? But repeating that thrill by repeating something new. I don't know. But if you don't have that capacity, you're miserable. You're just unsettled and miserable.
Yeah, I just think that the vision, the more you talk about the cheeses and cured meats, the more I think about it. I'm actually thinking about the various types of cheeses, various types of meats. I guess.
One of the things the Spanish do is they take that big piece of meat and they hang it in the barn, and they just let it cure there.
A jamón.
And you could just go in there and slice pieces off of it when it's ready.
Yeah, it's the Spanish version. Yeah, it's the Spanish version of prosciutto. They call it jamón.
Yeah, that prosciutto hanging in the barn.
Maybe I've lost my rage because I actually I have it easy because I don't really have to worry about the direction of my life. I have a very structured life. I have highways. I have electricity. I have bills that give me shelter. I pay a bill. I get shelter. I spend most of my time manipulating a spreadsheet. And I serve a greater good that's greater than myself, and I don't have to worry about myself or my past. I can just save up enough money to then go to Spain and live out my old years and eat. I guess I'm very happy, and I guess the system's working for me. The way to and you.
Oh, yeah, but don't think for a moment that because I'm filled with rage I'm not happy. I am extremely happy all the time. And my rage it's only bolstered by my happiness. I mean, the happiness and the rage go together. It's just I'm filled with a happy fury.
They do. And I think on a Sunday for me, I think the reason why I do these trail half marathons, and it was miserable yesterday. I really suffered at this race. Long drive, 13.1 miles. 2 miles into it, I didn't want to run, but I had to.
You arrived 5 minutes before the race started.
5 minutes before the race started, I totally miscalculated the drive time. So my 2 hours of driving and then jumping onto a half marathon, dehydrated, didn't have I just poured myself some coffee in the car. Didn't have time to stop
Oh my God.
for water. So at the race start, I grabbed my race number right from the table. The gun basically went right off. And so like my first 4 miles, I'm dehydrated. It's 80 degrees outside. I hadn't run in heat for a while. But then when I finished, I was this great state of peace. I was supposed to go back to Atlanta and go to this steam oystered festival and be social. And I'm sitting in this picnic cover area with all these folks from South Georgia and Alabama, and we're just eating hot dogs and eating potato chips. And I thought to myself, I don't want to go back to Atlanta. I just want to be here. So I spent about 2 hours sitting in the shade with these people. And I think that the reason why I train, and
who were these people? Racers?
Yeah, these trail runners. So we're in the middle of nowhere in this beautiful state park, and it's a different culture. You know, all the races are held in the wilderness, and you run on these rocks.
So you run into the same people kind of repeatedly at these races? Is that how it works?
You typically do. This one was completely in the opposite direction of most of the races. So normally I race in North Georgia, and that's where the whole circuit is. This was in Southern Georgia, so I was running into more people from Alabama and South Georgia. A lot of them are shocked that I made it all the way from Atlanta. But so I think I had a lot of rage. I have a lot of rage each day when I train, when I run, when I box, and going in. You know, probably when I woke up on Saturday morning, I had a lot of rage to do what I did. But then I guess I feel a certain peace for a couple of days after I do things like this. And
but that's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying about
when I
the
feel
release.
this peace. I
physically you have to release it. That's the only way to release this unsettled feeling, this rage that results from it. I think the rage for you and I perhaps is much more nuanced than for other people, because we've experienced so much and we're much more articulate. But the release is still the same. The release of the rage has to be made physical in the world, and physical sport is the best way to do it for a man, I believe. To take yourself to a painful place and to hurt yourself, and perhaps even to kill yourself if your rage is that deep. How far you want to take it depends upon how deeply you feel this rage.
Yeah, but I think the more obvious thing for me is that I've been broken by the system twice. I think once when I was married and I needed to make a living, and then the other time when I just felt like I was falling through the cracks, and I made this very painful decision to go back into the business world and get my CPA license. And now I'm really proud of myself and satisfied that I can pay my bills. And I think that if I was in my teens or 20s, I would have said, that's the most pathetic state you could ever reach. You're just like the typical suburban guy. You're just
yeah, that's not, yeah, but your teen or 20-year-old self would not have realized that you were living in a car without a heater in Alaska.
Yeah, and I look at my car. I look at my car now, and yeah, maybe I got to change my air cabin filter. But my car's in great shape, and I've got all the money I need to buy food, and I've got all the sellout stuff. I'm quite satisfied with it, and maybe it's because.
But it's a huge achievement. It's a huge achievement to get to that point from where you decided you want to get back to that point. You chose a very low moment, very miserable moment, and you said, "This is what I want to do," and then you executed it. But the thing I think is, obviously, it's a tremendous achievement. But at the same time, you're someone who needs to continue to achieve, and whether it's running or
it's
some
funny.
Creative act, you're going to have to look for new forms of achievement. You're not just going to shut down and be an accountant and pay bills and have a car.
But you once told me, I don't know much about Heidegger. You've read all the Heidegger. He's too tough. His language style is a little bit difficult for me to follow. but you used to give me the cliff notes of Heidegger, and or remedial Heidegger for me, and you talked about how what was the phrase, the carpenter begins to learn his craft to build a house, and then afterwards he continues to be a carpenter, to be a carpenter. Isn't there some story that Heidegger, some phrase about how you begin your task with a utilitarian impulse, but then you continue in your task because it becomes your being and your identity? Did he ever say that, or am I just making this up?
I mean, it sounds vaguely Heideggerian. Maybe you're referring to when you talk about carpentry. Perhaps you're talking about that. Heidegger delivered a speech to a group of, I think it was architects, about the idea of the dwelling. Like just building a house doesn't mean you've constructed a dwelling.
That's it. It was the dwelling. It was the dwelling speech. Yeah, the dwelling speech that he gave to architects.
Yeah. It's a tremendous. I need to reread that in my older age than when I read it in my youth. But it's a tremendous address to these architects. Imagine a big architects conference, and Heidegger is invited to give them an address. These guys are not philosophers, and you bring this little short German balding guy in, this little Nazi guy, and he tells you about building houses. He starts talking about building houses. He's never built anything in his life. He starts talking about, no, it's not enough to build a house. It's not enough. It's not enough. You haven't done anything. What you need is to build a dwelling. A dwelling is totally different. It's
well, what I'm getting at is that I used to always say, I have this other life, this life which is outside of the business world, right? I'm an explorer, a traveler, or I write literature. I really haven't written anything, but or philosophy. But now I begin to think, well, as opposed to just fighting the daily paycheck and being resentful of that, why not just say, no, I'm an accountant. I'm very proud of that. And all the work I do is very important. And
well, you should be proud of it, because you should be proud of it. I know you, and I know that you're going to be the best accountant that you could possibly be, and you're going to hold yourself to probably a much higher standard than they hold you to, because you're a professional. That's how you do things, and it doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with liking your job or not liking your job, but it has the matter to do with your own personal sense of professionalism, which it entails you giving an effort that you can give, which regardless of what the minimum is, your minimum, you don't have a minimum. You have just where your effort should be, which is probably well beyond the effort of everyone else. And there's no surprise to that.
Yeah, but if you think about it,
when I invited you to come to Alaska and I vouched for you, it was because I knew you'd pitch fish until you died. It didn't matter. I know that about you.
That was the oath. That was the oath at Front Dock. Do you agree to pitch fish until you die? And you say, I do. And then you take a hook and you put it through your finger and you draw blood, and you touch it to the hooked finger.
Touch it to Eddie's bleeding hand.
Yeah.
One-eyed Eddie. And then you touch. Then you shake. You give a blood oath to one-eyed Esteban.
That was some tough work in Alaska. I don't know if it was my favorite job. It might have been. It's a funny thing to say, because if you think about the
I think you loved the work. You didn't like Eddie. Eddie was a dick. He was a fucking dickhead. That's just the fact of it. I mean, Eddie wasn't nice to anybody. The idea that Eddie was nice to me, he wasn't nice to me either. While I was forklifting, he was whipping ice bombs at me from the conveyor belt, and I'm trying to put the totes into the hopper, and I got ice bombs flying by my ears. He nearly hit me in the head. I'm lucky he only had one eye. He couldn't even aim very well. That little bastard was making life difficult for everybody. The thing is that the only way to win against a guy like Eddie is not to take him seriously. That's the only way to diminish his assault on you. And you began to take Eddie seriously. You got pissed at Eddie.
I had some run-ins.
And I had
some run-ins with Eddie, and I had some rage. But I was trying to get to the fact that The work
Yeah,
the work
but
in Alaska.
you took him seriously.
What's that?
You took him seriously, and you never should have done that. You had to just not take him seriously, and he probably would have let it go after a while. But if you, for a moment, if he realizes he's a vicious little barracuda, when he sees that blood, he's gonna keep coming and coming and coming and coming and coming.
If you want to talk shop about Alaska, I should have ignored Eddie when he did things that didn't affect the actual production. But think about it this way. I'm up there by myself, and I eventually would get assistance, worthless assistance like Jason, motherfucker. Guy was either drunk or stoned out of his gourd all the time. The guy just didn't know how to hustle, didn't get anything. But anyway, I'm up there. All that flow is going into the bins, and I've got certain bins that are open to accept pinks, and the motherfucker's sending reds or silvers, and he's mixing shit. And he's doing it on purpose, and that's when I'd have to stop the line, and that's when I had my major blowups. It actually affected production.
Yeah, but he was doing that. You understand? He was doing that on purpose to get you fucking riled up, and that was his whole thing, right? And if he knew he could get you riled up, that was his throw.
Yeah.
Eddie was not about making
the problem
the
with
cannery
the Filipino
work well.
crew is that
he was a destroyer. He's a destructive force.
Yeah, they had the front dock by the balls. I mean, anyone else would have just been kicked off the fucking dock. But Eddie was so valuable.
I don't know if it was Eddie's moment that changed him was when the Mexican Felix was killed in that incident. And apparently it's said that Eddie after that was a different man. Like he, I don't know, maybe I wasn't there. I don't know. He took the forklift and he purposefully dropped 2 pallets of frozen squid on the lawyer's BMW in the parking lot.
Hey, maybe that was the case, and maybe
that was the lawyer who was going down to Mexico to give like a check for like 20 grand to the wife and the children of this guy who died in the dock. I always
felt that they thought I was some undercover boss, and I probably reminded Eddie of the lawyer. That's probably why he hated me. I was at work the other day.
Jimmy's a lawyer.
I was at work.
He's a lawyer.
I was at work the other day doing this tie out stuff, right? And it's very lawyerly. I've got all these documents spread out, and I'm matching statements to support. And a guy had been working there for 15 years. He said to me, "Hey, you look really lawyerly right now." And I think, yeah, that's probably why I can be very lawyerly sometime, and I would try to negotiate with these lunatics in a very lawyerly manner, and they just
negotiate with this one-eyed
street gang member,
Filipino former gangbanger from LA, from Manila.
Yeah, I would try to be a peacemaker between Boom Boom and who is Boom Boom trying to fight with? Mentor. God, I don't know if you were there for the Mentor Boom Boom fight.
You should not have stopped that. You should not have stopped that.
It was in the middle of a fucking hold, man. It was in the middle of a fucking hold.
Oh my God! There should have been a video camera down there. That would have been like a. You could have put that. UFC would have bought the rights to that thing and put it on. But it would have been a main event.
Can you imagine? Everybody gets off the ship and we leave them down in the ice-covered hold. And Esteban says, "Send down the weapons," and we just throw down ice picks and shovels.
All kinds of shit
These
down
guys
there.
are
Picks
sliding
and everything.
around
And they can just
on
go
the
at it.
fiberglass floor in the ice, and they're like a bunch of hockey fighters, and they're gonna kill each other with a bunch of ice picks. That'd be great.
Boom Boom was strong. Look, Mentor is a strong dude, but Boom Boom was also very strong. I don't know who would win that one.
Yeah,
I really don't know. That would come down to heart. And I always viewed Mentor as someone with a lot of heart. And Boom Boom could stop working and just fuck around. Well, Mentor could too. I don't know. Hey, I don't know. That would have been epic, though. An epic clash of continents and of cultures. This Nigerian fighting an Iraqi down in the hold in an Alaska boat.
Oh,
that would have been great.
Would have been great. I'll tell you, if we
Christ.
had a large documentary budget, I would love to do a documentary on Mentor. And it would begin in his Iraqi village. Now, of course, this might not even be funny. If we begin in his Iraqi village and literally some bad shit went down there, then obviously wouldn't be a very funny documentary. But the funny part of the documentary, all ethnic cleansing or war betrayal aside,
Yeah, but I bet all the mentor's family and the whole village has been killed by people that knew that they worked with the Americans. That's according to Sean, the Green Beret over at the Breeze.
yeah,
Bartender.
no, that's
Like he had a low opinion of Mentor because he said Mentor shouldn't be here. Mentor he's a collaborator. The collaborators all get shot and hung and beheaded.
well, but the documentary would be it would be called Finding Mentor, and it would be we'd get in a truck, we'd have a good truck, comfortable truck. And we'd be driving around Alaska trying to find Mentor and see if he's still there. And we'd go to Homer, we'd go to the cafe. Hey, did you see some Iraqi guy who was always looking for a ride or looking to open a bank account or looking for some ID cards? And maybe he made his way to Anchorage, looking for full-time employment there. I mean, it would be interesting just to go back to Seward and see how these guys are living, how their lives have changed. I'd like to see Charlie. I'd like to see Wolfman. I'd even like to see Eddie. I wouldn't like to see Ivan. I would probably. I mean, I don't even know how I'd describe my life to Ivan. Ivan, I'm back in the business world, and he'd still try to get me on a processing ship to Igigi. I mean, he'd still be trying to get me to go to the next gig. I think it would be great to visit Ivan on his island in the Philippines and see his monkey. God, I can't remember his monkey's name. And his life in the Philippines is almost akin to the eating cheeses and cured meats in Spain.
But the way he describes his life in the Philippines, about how he just he'd go down, like when he wants to eat, he just swims down in the ocean and he grabs a crab or a lobster or whatever he's doing. He's like he describes such beautiful stuff to me, and he would drink coconut wine and sleep in a hammock all day. Like, why would you ever go to Alaska? Why would you ever leave such a place? I can't understand it. If it's so wonderful.
I think on the one hand, they did it for the money, because you can't. I mean, you can't buy anything.
But he didn't even need money.
Well, no, you do.
If you live on that island that he lives on, they don't even use money there. They don't use money. You just say, He said, the only thing you need money for is to get coconut wine. That's the only thing that costs money. The rest of it, the food is everywhere. So basically he's just saying, I want to get high. I want to get fucked up. That's why I came to Alaska, to get money so I could purchase getting fucked up. And I think that's really what he was about. I think he's another of these restless, unsettled people that's filled with rage that I was talking about before. He came to Alaska looking for cured meats and cheeses, but he didn't realize that he was living in the land of cured meats and cheeses. He just couldn't afford the alcohol to eat the cured meats and cheeses with. And so he felt that he needed to go somewhere to afford the alcohol. And that led to a life of instability.
Yeah, but he opened up like a motel or a hotel. He had some real estate properties in the Philippines. I don't know if he told you about that.
He did? Oh, his wife did, right?
Yeah.
No, his wife did or something.
And
I don't know. I mean, if all that was happening, what was he doing pitching fish on a boat? I think you know that he was kind of a needy guy. He couldn't do anything on his own. All the Filipinos were like that. And that's why they all stuck together. The Filipinos were a block. The Filipinos not doing this, the Filipinos not doing that. No one would make a decision for themselves. And Ivan, he wanted to do things on his own, but he knew he couldn't go alone. That's why he needed some white guy to go with him, because the other Filipinos weren't going with him. It's just a very needy. I don't know if that's a feature of Filipino culture, that they're very unwilling to do something on their own. But that definitely.
I think that's probably true of a lot of village culture. Probably even outside of the Philippines. I've met some very independent Filipinos. They're very smart people, and they fit in very, very well in American business world once they get their business education. So
Because they're needy and they want to be a part of something so badly.
No, I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying the village culture, like most villages throughout the world, has a more of a collaborative mentality, a group mentality. And I'm not knocking.
Right, but it's the opposite. It's the opposite of being like the lone wolf outlaw rambler.
But I've seen the lone wolf. I've seen the lone wolf, not ramblers, but I've seen the lone wolf Filipinos go into corporate America and rise to the top, and they're doing it all by themselves.
Huh? It's interesting.
I have one in particular I'm thinking about. So, but they in order to get that mentality, they had to study Western business and compete. But that's
well, the whole idea. I mean, it just gets down to the whole point of Western business, and not even European. Which is, I mean, I'm talking about We're talking about American more or less,
right.
Which is the whole idea of the individual out on the frontier, making his way, building his homestead, doing everything on his own. Be like, I did this on my own. This whole world is mine. I created this whole thing. Europeans don't really have that sense of that. And like we're saying, I don't, Filipinos with their village life, I don't really think they have that sense of that. So you kind of have to come to America and appreciate American sense of, I did this all on my own. Although it's not even really true. All the Americans who say, it's a myth really, that you go off and do something entirely on your own. I don't really believe that could actually happen.
I mean, I think in the business world, you work very independently. You have to collaborate. You have to have social skills, but you're really rewarded for your work ethic and your conscientiousness. Now, I know that there's a lot of criticism of the clipboard George characters, but I think in any efficient business, whether it's in accounting or finance or sales, research development, marketing, even human resources, the best human resources department are actually getting things done. If you're dealing with a large union population, you want to keep your unions in check. You want to keep your healthcare costs in check. You want to keep your screening of individuals in check. You don't want a whole lot of chaff.
Well, the one area though of American corporate, it's not corporate life, but the one area, I mean, I've always been drawn to it is trading on your own. You know, when I was a trader, even at that company I won't mention, this was a solitary pursuit. My P&L was my own, and I was going to get fired or kept on based on that P&L. So I was independent of everything. There's nobody helping me with anything. Yeah, they're paying for the rent.
There's nothing more pure than what you did. There's nothing more pure than what you did. It's even more pure than setting up your own business. When you're setting up your own business...
Yeah, but isn't it a mistake? But isn't it a mistake to say that it's pure? Like what I did? I mean, what I did was an abstraction, really. It was a mythological job in many ways, based on the American pioneer myth of the one guy going out and making it entirely on his own, doing it entirely on his own. Yes, it just so happens because of technology that with trading, you could actually do that. But certainly the pioneer doesn't make it on his own. He needs the assistance of all kinds of things and the luck of the world and all this. You know, I was even lucky as a trader. I had lucky fucking days. I mean, I remember one day in particular.
Traders are dependent on a community. I mean, you have to have a community of willing individuals to trade with you. You need the information technology. You need the exchanges. You need the central banks.
But it's a very low level of dependence, though. I'm just saying that it's a mythological job. It perhaps is a job that it entertains all of the American myths of the pioneer, and it's only really appeared in the last 50, 60, 70 years. The independent trader, the guy who's able to just with a small grub stake go off and make a fortune. And I mean, in many ways, it is America. It's the ethos of America that could happen. And it's exciting that I was able to do it. I'm glad I was successful at it when I did it. But it's still a myth. I mean, it's still like can't take it all that seriously. And I'm not sure it's anything to aspire to either. But that's what people aspire to. That's real capitalism. You and you alone doing something.
It is, and the purity that I was speaking about is if you think that the end game is the paycheck, you're seeing, in the dollars that are deposited in the bank account, you're seeing on a daily basis exactly what your worth is. I mean, if you're dead weight, you're losing money. If you're not making money, you're not going to get paid. But if you've got 100,000 in profits from trading the knob or the German equity futures, you're
the Bund.
Yeah, Bund. You get instant feedback, but at the same time, it's very brutal. Because if you're doing something like accounting or marketing, you have a project. You do eventually see if it fails, but you have many days where you show up to work 250 days a year. You might have 50 days where you're not that productive, or you don't have a lot of energy and you're not that productive. But if you have 50 trading days where you're fucking losing money, it can destroy your whole year.
Well, I think getting to the main point of it is that it truly is a performance-based job, and what your performance is. A lot of guys can slide by in corporate America. You can go half-assed. Some other guys might know you're going half-assed, but maybe the guy at the top who writes the checks doesn't know you're going half-assed. You can't. I mean, look, I went half-assed as a trader a lot. I just got by on talent and guile many times because I was hungover, was thrown up in the garbage before the trading day started, or the bell would go off, or a Fed report would come on. I mean, I was not in great condition all the time. I could have taken it a lot more seriously and probably been a lot better.
Jesus Christ, that trading room must have smelled like shit. You used to puke in the garbage can.
Oh my God, I'd hurl in the garbage can in the middle of a Fed number, or unemployment come out on a Friday morning. And I'd be like, oh, I gotta throw up. I better throw up before this number comes out. So like 30 seconds before, vomit, then start trading, bang away on the mouse for a while, make money, then go toss the garbage out, watch it out after about an hour and a half into the trading day, then go to the bar for lunch, and come back, maybe put on a couple trades, then go to a Yankees game. I mean, that was a typical day. I mean, it's just ridiculous when you think about it. The kind of money being made. And it's just, I didn't realize, I was too young to realize that it was a moment in time when you could do that and that things would change. But I guess it's the illusion of a great athlete too, not even a great one, but someone who's really talented or talented enough to get by, like, to get to the major leagues, but be like an average major league baseball player. If you're an average Major League Baseball player, you're one of like a select few.
Right. Yeah.
Like no kid wants to own your baseball card because it's worthless. You're a 32-cent card. But you're making money and you're getting to do something that's badass, and chicks dig it, and you're a ball player and you're part of a select crowd, and you're not the best in the world, but you're pretty happy to be where you are. And that's sort of what I was. I was not the best. I was an average top tier professional. That's what I was. But I was average.
It was a pure sport. I mean,
I was high level.
Yeah.
I was in the big leagues, right? And so very few get to the big leagues. Yep. But there's people in the big leagues who are considered to be average big leaguers. That's what I was. I was an average big leaguer.
Well, I mean, I would actually say that you might have been a lot higher than that, because you had zero support. You didn't have large capital that was allowing you to front run. You didn't have inside information about Fed movements, which the large investment banks do. You didn't have inside information about commodity or interest rate movements, or LIBOR movements, for example. And you didn't have top research economists giving you support. So you were really a lone wolf that was able to run in front of the market.
There's another element to that. There's another element to that. And that element is my own psychology. Even if I had all of that information, right, would I have acted upon it and made trades upon it? I'm not sure that I would have, or I'm not sure I would have made those trades in size. I found very quickly as a trader that I could trade with a certain size and I could reduce my risk to almost nothing. And a lot of this fear. It was a fear of losing. I developed this fear of losing because I lost money in Paris, and it bankrupted me, and I had nothing to eat. And I'm gonna write a great short story about that period in Paris. Very, very hopeless period. I mean, but it's every trader who's ever made it has a first big time loss, and it seems big time to them, but it's actually a very small amount of money. But it puts them in a situation where they feel terrible, and it's from that and their response to that determines whether they can become great or they're just going to fail again and again and again, and they'll always be a loser. And I vowed after Paris and my loss that I would never be a loser again. I would never put myself in that position. And so when I started making money, I was tweaking and trying to improve upon a very limited way of making money. And when I realized I could make money with this, I wasn't really considering like taking on a lot more risk and doing something really, really new to make myself more money. I wasn't driven like some of the other guys in the office. One in particular, Steve, that guy, he would never stop. He was a gambler. He would just never stop. Losses didn't faze him. It just didn't matter. He would just keep trying to make more and more and more and more and more all the time. I was not like that. I was trying to protect what more that I made. And when I started making more money, I turned very conservative. It just led to more conservatism, even though the trades were there. Even though the trades I could have continued to make money with my strategy were there, I still would shy away from them after I'd made a certain amount of money. And it came from a fear of loss, which I felt strongly from personal experience. And I think that was a severe limitation to my talent. I think perhaps I had more talent that I didn't explore. But I was very comfortable with that. I said, this is as far as I need to go today. I made $2,000 or $3,000. I just make $2,000 or $3,000 every day, and I only work a couple hours a day, and that'll be a great life for me. I don't need that much to live anyway, so this is perfect.
Yeah, but a lot of these guys,
that was my thinking.
A lot of these guys that are so-called geniuses end up, maybe having more exhibitions of talent and then blowing up. I think of the guy who was the brilliant coppers trade. It was either copper or natural gas, but one of the funds, it was called Amaranth Advisors. I can't remember what commodity it was. But the guy literally had made $1 billion in I think it was natural gas the year before, and then the next year blew it all up. And so I think size, appropriate sizing of the trades, risk management, it's what allows it.
It's so hard to say though. It's so hard to say about how a guy, like if a guy blows up, I would be curious to see the trade that he blew up on. But I'd also be curious to see all the trades that he was doing normally, that he built himself on. Because I tend to think guys who blow up were guys who always had the potential for blow up within their trading system, and within how they were thinking, within their psychology, within what they were doing. The way I was trading, I never had a risk of blow up. When I was trading those knobs, I was never going to blow up. It was not ever going to happen. And there were guys in the office, though, who had they were doing the same thing I was doing, that were a major risk of blow up at all times. And so I'm just curious about a guy who blows up. I believe that was always there in his psychology, and he probably was a risk of blow up all along. It just didn't hit until later. That's how I look at blow up risk.
Well, a lot of these guys just don't sense regime changes. I mean, a lot of these commodities are influenced by larger collectives, and natural gas and crude oil are two good examples, especially crude oil, copper, and so they just don't sense a turn in the market, and they think that they.
Yeah, but shit can happen. Shit can happen sometimes. I'll speak about one experience in particular. In I think it was like 2001, late 2001, 2002, George Bush announced, or I don't know, maybe it was this guy at the Treasury. It was probably this guy at the Treasury announced. And this was coming off Clinton's budgets, which were not in deficit, but they had budget surpluses. Bush eventually would go on to run major deficits. But at least in the beginning, there were budget surpluses coming out of the Clinton years. and it was announced by Bush's Treasury that the 30-year bond was going to be discontinued. Now, I was trading, and I was a pretty small trader at that time. And there was some strange movements. There were some strange movements going into that release by the Treasury. And I saw the knob price suddenly at a price that was incredible. And I'm a fade trader, so that means that I always go against whatever extreme move is happening. I don't believe in extreme moves. I always stand in front of the train. I always try and catch a falling knife. Always doing that. And in this case, I suddenly saw this print prior to this news release coming out. We didn't even know what the news release was going to be, but this crazy print. And I saw the knob, and I bought the knob at this price. And I thought, oh my God, I was announcing to everyone on the trading floor, I just bought the knob at this. Suddenly the news release comes out. And I look at my my charting software, and and the up-down movements that I had been trading, which covered the entire screen, all of that period had become a straight line, and the knob had dropped off on a precipice suddenly. And I was trading a 3x2. I think I bought a 3x2. This was in the early days of trading for me. It was like the smallest unit of the knob I could have bought. Maybe I was like a 6x4, so I had like basically 2 knobs on. I was down $10,000. I couldn't believe it, right? These were in the early days, and it was like when you're trading a 6x4 maximum. Yeah, this must have been really early. This must have been 2001. When you're trading like a 6x4 maximum knob, the most you could ever lose would probably be like $300 in a day. I mean, it's really hard to lose a lot of money. I mean, the tick size for a 6x4 is like $150. It's just tough to lose a lot with daily volatility. Anyway, I'm suddenly down $10,000 on a 6x4. I'm looking at it, and I'm like, wait. There's something wrong with my computer. I don't even understand what the charting software is telling me. Everything I was trading for this day, this up-down movement became a straight line, and now it fall off a cliff. That's where the knob is now, and I've purchased this thing. And then I start to look at it, and when you're in a knob, you're either short or long 10-year treasuries, and you're short or long 10-year bond or 30-year bonds. Anyway, I am long. I'm short. What am I? Let me get this right. Yeah, I was long now. Yeah, that means I'm long. I am long 10 years and I'm short 30 years, right? But because the 30 year is now going to be discontinued, there's going to be a shortage of 30 years. So everyone is buying 30 years and selling 10 years. So both legs of my position are going against me. You never see this. You never see this in a spread. That both legs of your spread would be going against you. You know, if you do a spread with equities, and you're doing them within the same, well, I guess they could both go against you too, depending upon what it is. It's possible, but it's a very rare occurrence that you'd have your long part and your short leg, both going against you. And they were going against me violently. Like, I'm watching the 10-year just piss down, and I'm watching the 30-year go straight up. I mean, you're just watching the losses mount on a very small position, and they're mounting quickly. Like $1,000 is ticking off like every couple minutes, and that's a tiny position. Yeah, General, it's I don't know. Yeah, it's just an exciting moment. But I mean, you can be wrong. You could be dead wrong, like about something like that, and get wiped out. So, I mean, if I was in there with a lot of size, I could have wiped out a lot of money by adding to a position like that, going into some announcement I didn't have any insider information on. Somebody had insider information though about that, because that thing moved a lot prior to the announcement.
Yeah.
And I added to it at that movement.
So the Goldman Sachs guys, the Merrill Lynch guys, or the Chase guys, they have the insider information, and so they're able to put a lot of capital to work and move out of the way and position themselves in the right direction. But because you kept your size small, I mean, you didn't get wiped out. If you'd gone big and bet the wrong way, you would have been wiped out.
I mean, I just didn't have enough size allowed to me by the company at that time to go after it. But I added to it during the day. I'm an idiot, right? I'm a fade trader. I never go with the trend. Never. Throughout the day, I kept on believing that this thing had to turn around and that it couldn't continue in this direction. Even despite the news, the 30-year is never going to exist again. I still wanted to short the 30-year and buy the 10-year. So throughout the day, I kept on trying the same trade. It kept on losing. And this continued for weeks. This continued not with the same strength, but for weeks after this, probably a couple weeks, it continued. And during the entirety of those weeks, I never once went with the trend. So I think I lost money for the next 2 weeks. I just kept on coming in, and I kept on fading the move. Everyone in the world was selling 30 years to buy 10 years. And I was standing on the other side of the market, trying it every time, thinking I'm going to pick the bottom on this thing.
Yeah,
this knob can't go any lower.
This stuff was on sale. This is the bargain.
No, I'm completely unable. I am completely unable to go with the trend. And that's one of the reasons why I'd make a very bad trader right now, because this is a trend market. This market does not go in the other direction ever. It does not go up and down as it slowly moves higher. It just goes straight up as it moves higher, or it goes straight down as it moves lower. There is no variation in variability because you have computer systems that operate it. You have the computerized trading, and all this Fed money has created very one-directional markets. You don't get the variation within the move that allows for a guy like me to make money all day, even though I was basically wrong. Like the knob moves up and I short it all day, but I still make money because there's enough variation in movement in the upward move that I can get in and out all the time. So fade traders like myself have not been favored over the last decade, since 2008. It's just been a terrible position to be in. I mean, that's one of the reasons I really haven't been trading. I think the bigger moves are long-term moves that you can fade, but you got to be willing to stay in those trades for a long time. Day trading and being a fade trader, it's a way to get destroyed very quickly.
Right. I mean,
and that's why most of the guys I know don't trade anymore. I mean, they're done trading because they were all fade traders.
There used to be these business cycles, right, that you could predict, and now with the interventionalist policy.
Well, that's the broader trend. I mean, the broader trends have been disrupted as well, but I still think the broader trends will have to still exist in some form or another. But I'm talking intraday. The intraday moves with the variation of the intraday is not there anymore. You can't. For one thing, the computer systems are faster than a mouse, so you can't do it manually. And I just don't think there's enough edge there and enough movement up and down within a move going higher or lower that you could actually trade profitably relative to transaction costs. I just don't think it's there.
Yeah, but at the same time, these algorithms are still being coded by people who are seeing these patterns. I mean, perhaps they're doing data analysis using computers to determine what the actual algorithms should be. But I mean, there's still at the end of the day human judgment involved. There are guys that are still having an insight into something, writing code for it, and then letting that code run.
The issue with the algorithms is that whether they will turn off or turn on. And most of them will turn off if a certain level of volatility is reached. And basically, they all qualify as market makers. And so when you basically have all of these algorithmic market makers set to turn off if the VIX, for whatever they're trading, whatever product they're trading, the volatility reaches a certain level. And when I say volatility is just a measure of up-down movement. And they've eliminated up-down movement, which is what I used to make my living off of, was trading the upper edges of intraday up-down movement. So basically, you've eliminated up-down movement during the day, and you have a bunch of market makers which claim to be offering very tight markets that are most efficient for the economy and most efficient for bankers and the whole financial system. But yet, if a certain volatility band is crossed, all of those market makers will shut down. And suddenly, if you cross this little intermediary band of volatility, you're going to have massive volatility because all the market makers will cease to exist in the market anymore. That's where we are right now. We have no volatility or we have massive volatility.
Right, and
it's a recipe for flash crashes. Right. It's a recipe for the S&P dropping.
It's what you saw 3 weeks ago when
the Dow dropping thousands
of points. It's what you saw 3 weeks ago when those guys had to buy basically 4 days volumes of the VIX in a couple of minutes to rebalance their ETF funds.
Well, they've even compounded the problem by having these ETFs, and everyone is purchasing these ETFs. And so you have these structural issues which have nothing to do with human traders, whether it's ETFs in the rules of ETF rebalancing or it's these algorithmic programs. I mean, in the past, you used to have human traders, which were the lifeblood of markets. And for some reason, and it's because of technology and all that, and the belief in technology that it's going to liberate us, it put all the human traders out of work. But guess what? This market needs human traders. It shouldn't even be called market makers anymore. There should be a registered class of human traders, which is operational in a market. And I think the only way to make space for them is to limit the technology. But it would take stopping the investment banks and putting their algorithms and having their servers, closer to.
We need to bring back the futures
the
pits.
central
we need
server.
to bring back the retired Chicago Bears players, bring them back into the futures pits, and have them have trade tickets.
Well, it comes down to this. It comes down to accepting perhaps on a daily basis a less efficient market with a slightly wider bid-ask spread relative to the depth of the market and everything. So there is going to be a little more transaction cost for knowing what the price of things really should be on an intraday, non-volatile day level. But it's its own kind of insurance when you have human traders, that when shit goes crazy, you're still going to have a market. Because there's still going to be yahoos that are on the floor, or yahoos like I was on the screen, who are going to step in front of those trains and try and catch those falling knives. And they're going to believe that they're the one who's going to pick the bottom and make the top. And they're going to hit the switch, and they're the one who's going to make all the money at these turns in the market, because they're going to step in to make turns. But you don't have anyone stepping in to turn the market when it's a bunch of algorithms that have been shut down. There aren't any human traders to do it. The algorithms are not set up to do it. I mean, perhaps someone needs to build algorithms that operate only when all the other algorithms shut down. There's probably an edge there.
Yeah,
I don't know why anyone hasn't done it.
There was one other movement that was complicating the crash a couple weeks ago. These value at risk calculations, these funds that have a certain amount of equity, the amount of value they can have at risk is based on the standard deviation of the returns. And if you get a spike in volatility, these guys have to stupidly liquidate their portfolios as the market is going down. Sounds like the same thing that happened in '87.
It is. That VAR stuff, I don't know if you've read that guy, Nassim Taleb. He's a furious opponent of that whole VAR stuff. And that's one of the reasons he's been successful as a trader, is because he realizes that this VAR calculations are total bullshit. And basically, this whole trading strategy and methodology is based on the fact that this stuff will fail if markets move to a certain point. And the conditions of these market failures will just be exacerbated by these so-called risk management structures, that they're not managing risk at all. They're just exacerbating potential volatility at certain extremes.
Trading is a great sport when it's working for you. I mean, when you feel that you're making money based on you're outsmarting the market, or you're just being clever or being a good athlete, I mean, it's very rewarding. But if you spend a year or two of your life and you look at your P&L and it's flat, or you have a loss, it's crushing you, because you feel like you've just spent your whole life looking at a screen, clicking the mouse. And I think you've even made this observation. You said trading is like really one of the worst things you could do with your life. I mean, is that only relative to whether or not your P&L is working in your favor? Or would you still make that observation? Let's say a guy's had a record of 20 years. He's making money. Is it something that just becomes all-consuming, like Steve?
One of the problems I have with it is that trading is really thrilling. It's very exciting, especially for someone who's athletic and creative. It really fulfilled for me a lot of the things on a daily basis, and thrills and highs and lows that I was looking for in my life. And it gave me a constant overall long-term sense of satisfaction that I was building money for something, and I was setting certain goals about, I want to have $2 million in the bank by this time. But then there was no and then, right? I mean, that's the problem, is when you start getting involved in that kind of a game, there isn't any end to it. And you can always compare yourself to somebody else. That's always a dangerous thing to do in whatever you're doing. But in trading, it becomes very easy because there's always a comparison to be made. There's always someone who's done better than you, and it can become vicious. And when you learn to control the viciousness of it and you don't compare yourself and you start thinking about just your program and what you want to do and what you want to achieve, I think I got to that point, but I just didn't have any real purpose for what I wanted to achieve. And it just degenerated into, I wasn't really writing, I wasn't creating, because trading was soaking up all that creativity. And yeah, I was just drinking.
It's hard for traders to take time off too. They think they're missing every market move, but maybe that's the secret. These guys need to take 3-4 months off a year and just ignore what's going on. The market will always be there.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think I'd realized early on in my life that I didn't need a lot to live to be able to have the kind of life that I really enjoyed living. And somehow or the other, when trading was successful for me, I started to think, well, I needed more and more and more. And maybe $2 million would be enough. I mean, if you gave me $2 million in my bank account, that'd be way too much. I couldn't spend that no way in the rest of my life. I don't need that much money. In fact, I realized, and it's been relatively recently, I realized I don't really need any money at all. If you need money, you can always get money. I mean, the only reason to get money is because you have a project that requires money. But unless you really have a project that requires money, then what's the point of stockpiling all this money? It's not worth using up the best years of your life to do it and a lot of your energy. The best years of your life and all of your energy should be put towards doing something that no one else can possibly do. And either you're driven to trying to produce something no one else can possibly do, which is usually and oftentimes and all the time artistic. You're going to create something no one's ever seen before, whether it's a book, a piece of writing, a painting, whatever. I mean, that stuff doesn't cost any money to do it. You just need to feed yourself while you're doing it. I mean, maybe though you need to travel somewhere to be able to do it. Maybe you need some experiences you think that'll help you get to this point, or you want to make a movie, you need some technology. But even that today is not expensive. So you really don't need very much money at all to be able to do anything that you might think is very, very important. And I got drawn up into the fact I was just I just put a number out there and I thought, oh, this is what I need. And just led to stupid calculations and living stupidly. And it wasn't like I was saving money anyway. I was fritting money away. I mean, I spent all my money in bars and stuff. I wasn't trying to save anything. Just there was too much money going around. That's the problem. You start making money like that, it's too much money. Yeah. Even if I wasn't seeing what I was making the company, they were giving me a tiny fraction of what I was really making. But the thought that I was able to make all of that money whenever I wanted to changed me. It was like I had a gold mine in front of me and I could just show up drunk and I could just bring gold out of it every day and it didn't matter. It was just so easy. I had the world by the balls, man. And I didn't know that it could change. And I didn't know at the time that even if it did change, it wouldn't destroy me. Like when it changed, I thought, fuck now, what am I going to do? But I wasn't fucked at all. I was actually liberated. I was released. I didn't realize that I still had a lot of things to do in my life.
I mean, the irony is that the more successful you get, the farther you are away from the things that probably got you into the business in the first place to make money. You probably thought, I want to make money so I can break away and go on and pursue all of these great projects. But then 3 years passes by, you become more distant to that connection to the projects, saving and scrapping. When you used to, just spend a couple of dollars a day, now you're out $100 bottle of wine. It's no big deal. You just made a couple of $1,000 in one day, and then it just kind of leads to a dissipation. I wonder what the secret is. How do people get reinvigorated? How do they remember again the purpose of their frugality of the project? Because immediately when a person gets burnt out and says "fuck this making money," they finally realize, well, there was a purpose of making the money in the first place. That's why I'm trying to be a little bit more moderate about how quickly I just quit this business gig, because it's hard to recapitalize, and I guess maybe I'm more patient about what I actually want to do and how much I actually do need. I don't need a lot either, but I do remember how hard it is. I mean, That's the problem. Going to Alaska was a great experience for me, but it is not a good place to make money. I know you wrote an entire book about how it really is a great place to make money, but it's a very slow and painstaking way to make money.
Yeah, I have unfortunately focused my life in the last number of years on trying to make money, but doing it in ways that are very slow. And really the focus has been on trying to eliminate expenses while making money. And I think in some ways, yes, if you look at making $10 an hour, $10 an hour sucks. But if you don't pay for your housing and you don't pay for your food, then $10 an hour starts to look a lot better. And perhaps $10 an hour in that situation is better than $80,000 a year living in Manhattan. I'm sure it is. I'm sure you come out at the end of the year with more money. And perhaps on top of that, you have an extraordinary experience that you can write about and is very different. So there's a lot of bonuses to it. And that is what I was exploring with Alaska. And that's what I'm exploring with trucking too. But at the same time, I understand and I know that I'm an outcast. I'm someone who received a very high education and graduated top of his class, and I turned my back on the investment banks that wanted to interview me. And then I became a futures trader, not for the sell side, but for the buy side, which brands me an outlaw and a cowboy. And so I've done everything to put myself in a situation of being an outcast and unhireable, and I've been blacklisted. And the good part about that is that I've been blacklisted.
You weren't blacklisted. You weren't blacklisted by
things.
Front Dock. You were the finest four.
No, I'm perfect for that group of outcasts. Yeah. That's why guys like me have to go to Alaska to get work. I'm perfect for that. And so there's nothing I can do to rehabilitate myself other than getting into Stanford or Harvard or getting into a top 5 MBA school, and I would be rehabilitated then. But there's no way that I could ever do that because I think all the shit they teach is bullshit. It's just all bullshit. And I could not legitimately sit through those classes without calling out the bullshit.
You might experience what they call rage.
Yes, I would have rage. Just like I would have if I tried to get a PhD in philosophy. I would call out bullshit in those classes as well. So I mean, I'm an outcast, and it's by choice. It's by choice and demeanor, and it's for the best. It's for the best. So I got to find out a way to make it in this outcast world, and that means that I got to deal with a bunch of idiots all the time. I'm in a world of idiots, just stupid people. But you know what? The stupid people that are in truck driving, the stupid people that are working on docks in Alaska, I prefer those stupid people than the educated class of stupid people that I would have to listen to and tell me about how things are in the world and their theories and how their VAR works for risk management. And come on, man. I don't need to hear all that. I've been out there in the world and that shit doesn't work. And I've made money and proved that it doesn't work. So, I mean, I guess my life has become just the sheer fact that I can live and be able to produce and be successful in the way that I've decided is important. That those successes that I've set for myself, that I can be successful doing this and that and do this and that, that is proof enough that my way of thinking is right and correct. And I mean, it's a trader's mentality, which is just that. Yeah, I just can finagle this trade. I can take a leg off and I can ride that and do that. It's just looking for tiny little advantages in everything that I do, in tiny little efficiencies. But the sad fact is, if I fuck up at any time, I'm probably fucked. If I have a big fuck up, I'm wiped out. That's just living really close to the bone. But you know what? It's better than having a huge bank account and wasting it in bars, which is the other extreme. Which could very easily happen. It wouldn't take much where I'd get too comfortable and I'd lose my edge. So it's good having an edge. It's a pain in the ass sometimes when you're living that close to the bone, but man, you are alive, you know.
Well, it's a shame. It's a shame given the amount of work that was available there in Alaska. It's a shame that wage evaporated because you know, working on that dock and making your way to the top of the plant, you know, maybe you got to be head of the Wolf's position? What a Wolf man? He was head of something.
He was head of the where they were
The cookers.
Cooking the salmon.
I mean,
all the
if under
the
the pre-private equity generation, I mean that was a great job. Or getting Gill's job. I don't know what he made, but I mean that would have been something where you put in the hours, you make a really good.
Yeah, but those guys are all now rolling in money. They're fucking wealthy guys. I mean, Mike Dormity's a millionaire, multi-millionaire. So I'm just all I'm saying is that being a multi-millionaire, it would probably ruin my edge. It would probably ruin my ability to want to write well and to be driven in the ways that I'm driven. It would challenge my rage and my anxiety and how I view my own life in a way that I wouldn't like. I would have achieved something that I think I would want to believe was an achievement based upon what my culture tells me, what America tells me, but yet I know deep down is no achievement at all. It would settle me in a way that would ruin me creatively. And $2 million is actually nothing. In history, nobody remembers people for the amount of money they make. When you read a book of history, you don't read about, yes, this guy was the wealthiest person during the period that he lived in. You never read about somebody being wealthy. It's absolutely fucking irrelevant historically. Nobody cares about wealthy people. They don't exist. They only care about warriors. They only care about creative people. Those are the only people that have ever mattered. Those are the high points of human history. Guys who became heroes, guys who wanted to become gods. You don't become a god by becoming wealthy. You become a god by heroic
it's exhibition
victory.
of courage. It's holding up to unpopular principles, even if it means discomfort and social ostracism and sacrifice.
I mean, perhaps in a very domesticated system where you do not allow people for achievements physically on the battlefield, you have distance from all of that kind of stuff. Whether you can be like, we don't have adventurers anymore. People that go on great adventures and can die and discover new lands that are not known to their culture. So you don't have any of that anymore. You don't have any more like the great hero warriors that come back from war. That are young men don't grow up wanting to be a warrior and go to war. There's been a change about that. So there's no more adventure like that. Creative people, creativity has been stripped of a lot of its great achievement as well. I mean, because it's entered the university system. And now if you want to be a writer, you want to get an MFA, you want to be a painter, you get a master's of fine arts at some Chicago Art Institute or whatever it is. I mean, everything now has become something you study instead of being something that you just go out and do and you figure out and you're around people who are doing the same thing and no one's eating anything. And now it's all about taking out a loan and figuring. It's just been sapped of its risk, that's physical risk. And all these people now are professors, and it's very incestuous because they're all teaching each other and buying each other's work, and it's all ridiculous. It's all ridiculous. So. I mean, if you really feel that youthful, I want to do this, man. I want to have something I really feel. And I mean, that was the whole reason to go off to Europe in the first place. We didn't know anything about it. Go off there or do that. I mean, it's always been the reason you do anything, but at least I've done it.
Well, I've been inspired. I've been inspired by my retirement. I think you've given me a great goal of cheeses and cured meats, and I'm sticking with this. And but in the meantime, I still have some mountains I want to explore. I have some islands and some sea kayaking I want to do. I've got a lot of trails I want to run, and I might have some writing. Maybe I'll write about some stories. Maybe I'll cobble together what I think is philosophy. But I'm still looking forward to the cheese and the cured meats. And if you've changed your mind on that, I'll have to just tell you about what it's like, and I think I'm going to win you over to the cheese and cured meats, and it's the cure for rage. You get some good. Think about it. All those
it's the opposite. It's the opposite of rage.
It's the opposite of rage.
It's the cured meats and cheeses. It's the opposite of rage.
And working in a garden, maybe raising tomatoes, picking fresh herbs.
hope it's that easy. I hope I get
Yeah.
there one day. Man.